course as all arms remain aimed at Baghdad. Meanwhile, my students stuff blunts in their book bags, and I've only come into contact with about 4 out of 104 genuinely concerned dads. See, I'm a teacher, so I've been at war since September. Each day I high step over lockers like landmines and combat boots, about facing dirty mouths, spinning dirty bombs in belligerent hallways where the enemy often poses as a civilian clothed in a khaki uniform, and it's uniformed to receive hostile resistance, and it's nearly impossible to share intelligence without someone questioning its relevance. In many instances, my lesson plan is 3 parts discipline, 1 part curriculum. During weekday warfare, the bell rings like a siren signaling a change in brigades. Waiting in the wings to be trained, I call Bin Laden and Hussein by first name. They occupy seats in my class, and I'm told to socially promote them, stroke them, tell them they can achieve in their performance is barely a degree above mediocrity. See, I work for a school system where 75 is honor roll, but passing is 70. See, I work for a school system whose students must reach into their pockets and pay to see the school assemblies. Iraq is a world away. I say we disarm these school systems with their gargantuan debt and equal obsession with assessing and testing these children to death. Let's lobby Congress for $75 billion and liberate learning so her summer camp won't be summer school. Sometimes I teach my butt off how to fear your child might rob me in a few years, but when there's no longer a fear in failing, it becomes necessary to drop grenades in the textbook pages so they'll be halfway engaged in the battlefield. See, my students were drafted. They don't really want to be there. I said my students were drafted. They don't really want to be there. They're in hardback torture chairs. They're like prisoners of war being force-fed a foreign language class they must pass in order to graduate. Behind enemy lines, whines and complaints tend to taint a teacher's take on teaching, and I've begun to wonder if my arms aren't too short to reach them, too short to lead them, because they've already been misled by the 15 years of lead in their drinking water. And since the average parent is only 15 years older than her child, it's safe for me to assume she's consumed the drinking water too. And the 90-minute overcrowded classroom, what the heck do you expect me to do? Raise the child you rear from the womb? Undo the daughter who disrupts my class and walks home to disrespect you? It's difficult for me to believe in a Baltimore with a 72% dropout rate between grades 9 and 12. It's difficult for me to believe in a Baltimore where 42% of its students are in need of special needs I can barely meet. Me, a 5'1" first-year general. Me, an out-of-discipline English teacher teaching French to a 15-year-old on a first-grade reading level. Me being constantly barraged with friendly fire from foot soldiers, barely making basic training. It's draining to teach teen mothers who actually believe they can carry their infants through infantry and still leave this war unscathed. Sorry, I can't raise 104 kids on your ridiculous budget. But when the casualties are high, they blame the general. When the battle is lost, they blame the general. When hope is lost, they blame the general. So we better pray to whom or whatever we call God, because I don't know who can lead them, much less teach them. I already told you my arms are too small to reach him. So I dare one of you try and save him.
Wow.
Right. It's so funny, I got real jigger, didn't I? I only know her through faded Polaroid shots with peeling edges. The machete-eyed woman with a honeydew smile is a bittersweet steam engine. A DC-bred domestic who beat cancer twice, lost a 29-year-old daughter to brazen bullet sprays, and raised a grandson on stained glass prayers and Social Security. Her poverty is the undercooked dough of access, a dice roll in a board game where chance does not come often, and now she is hobbled by a foot that daily becomes more black than blue than brown. They say it is dead. A decaying limb, a candidate for medical school study in southern fried lynchings, but she'd rather die, rather curse the nurses, damn the doctors, and sucker punch the pain than be an amputee. It lingers as the ghost of how her brother went. He too had the sugar that strangles blood, turns it cactus needle dry of desert, and they're already sucking the life from her neighborhood because poverty is a shank wound in the rock gut of privilege, ignored like the rape no one wanted to witness for fear of the responsibility to tell. After the whitewash of the graffiti-smeared walls, they make invisible the brown. Squeeze labored breaths from city sounds, go-go bass, double Dutch ropes, and a sneaker's screech to make room for the expensive conversations held in luxury condominiums her kind will never afford. While they transplant the heart of her community's chest and chop off the heads of the poor, she demands at least one choice. They can't take both her foot and her home. Her pride won't allow it. She will curse them like she did the doctors and nurses, To them, women like her are undereducated obstacles to strip malls and beautification, unattractive ornaments in the way of evergreens and urban renewal. The first lessons we learn about gentrification are from Monopoly. It teaches 6-year-olds the subtleties of privilege and class. Mediterranean Avenue is a $2 rent slum. No one wants it. Boardwalk is the gem, even more desirable than the greens. Everyone lands on Illinois Avenue at least once, but the end game is always the same. Own it all, then everyone owes you and must move. Like the brown people, like the grandmother, like the poor people who can no longer afford to live in the cities because the rent's too high, the homes are too expensive, the area too lush, too plush for a pauper's palate to appreciate. Monopoly teaches us that grandmothers don't matter, especially if they can't put their feet down and fight. So he asked me how I made Michael. I told him Michael was the residue of a monarch butterfly's wing, a peacock feather of a sun with a ruby slippered soul. I swear the boy was born with a metronome's pulse, the kind that would accelerate from the threat of cast iron skillet hands, but calm itself once the groove dropped, made Michael out of head bops and slivers of unicorn horns and hair rare. My son was a slow-cooked fantasy. Creme brulee sprinkled with brittle blue moons, rich, rainbowed, foreign, not often, almost ever, freakishly eclectic, odd. Michael was the amusement park, the attraction, the exhibit, the line, the wait, the turnstile, the harness, the climb, the drop, the slide, the upside, the down, the backward, the spin, the dip, the scream, the screech, the halt. Those legs were smeared with glitter somersaults, hamster wheels, and Motown suede. Michael's bravado was manifest destiny, made integration a musical without sit-ins or protests, made him from patent leather shoes, sequins, shyness, made him stage, wood, shout, strut, gravity, collapse. Michael was a camera's flash, paper mache, and accordion skin. He was break, brittle, broken, bend. I was why he hid behind a surgeon's knife, chasing the kid he could never be. Then he asked me how I made Marvin. I told him Marvin was the frill of the blouse in my subconscious, a Jesus fan, a Holy Ghost whisperer and crucified tongue, made him from bylaws and belts, nervous twitches and put-downs. Marvin was a roiling rue of revenge, a hoodooed voice that hypnotized, the lazy legato with an egotistical itch, a vineyard and a rolling hill of smooth, a doo-wop, a conch, a moon glow, a solo, an addiction, a clean high, a guillotine, a cannabis seed, a church, made him from saints, gospels, altars, martyrs, envious herbs and my own incompetence, made him man because I wasn't, made him man by accident, made him from construction, head-on collisions and stop signs, from projects, mishaps, happenstance, oops and uh-ohs. Didn't make him really. Ineptitude is never responsible, didn't mold him actually, only tolerated his voice, realized Jesus must love him more. It's why I killed him, made him shudder, snatched a would-be breath from a would-be riff before it could become song, made his handsome face a gruesome twist of eyes, of nose, of mouths, of lips. Jesus made him beautiful, but I made him gone, made him gone, made him gone. Geniuses aren't made by mortals. God just sends them to us when we're not looking.